Hello and welcome to the next part of the Strixhaven card reveal. We're going over the blue cards in this particular video. We've already talked about white cards, and I've already sort of loosely set it up, the formatting for these videos. So that's in the white version of this video. So if you want to learn more about how we're doing this, or particulars about how we're doing this, I recommend you go look there. With that little preamble out of the way, we'll just go straight into the first blue card. First is Arcane Subtraction. 1 in a blue. For an instant, target creature gets -4, -0 until end of turn, and learn. This card, it's one of those, it's a nice limited combat trick, and that's about it. It's a limited card or a teaching card. Don't ever run it. It's just not that good. Next is Archmage Emeritus, 2 in 2 blue for a 2/2 human wizard with Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy instant or sorcery, draw a card. I am really not into this card. I think it's so very slow. It's a 4 mana 2/2 with no protection or evasion, and it has to live to turn 5. Turn 5 to then at least draw you to replace the card you cast to trigger the Magecraft. Blue already has plenty of card draw, so it's not really lacking anything that the Archmage gives it. I don't think if you try to make your human deck run blue, I don't think you'd run it. And wizards don't want the Archmage for card draw. I don't think this card will really see a whole lot of play. Next is Burog Befuddler. 1 in a blue for a 2/1 Frog Wizard with Flash. Love the art, actually. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -1, -0 until end of turn. Again, this is one of those, maybe if you're going to try and be silly and make frog tribal work, you might run it, because you have to be married to the theme a little bit. It's nice limited removal, but that's about it. It's limited removal or a teaching tool, really. I don't think it'll ever really see play. Next is Bury in Books. That has some very cool art, by the way. Anywho, 4 in a blue for an instant. This spell costs 2 less to cast. If it targets an attacking creature, put target creature into its owner's library second from the top. So it's a 5 mana, or it can be a 5 mana at instant speed. Tuck a creature into its owner's library. That's a little overcosted, but it's like basically it's a fairy hero down tick tuck, so that's fine. The attacking creature part might actually be relevant. I can see that being more relevant than some would give it credit for. Going from 5 to 3 mana might actually let us see some weird fringe play in like your mono blue tempos of the world. So yeah, fringe play, and that's about it. Cool art though. Next is Curate. 1 in a blue for an instant. Look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put any number of them into your graveyard, and the rest back on top of your library in any order. Draw a card. If you're running a blue deck that likes to have a graveyard, you might actually run this card. Since there's already pre-existing ways in the format to kind of put stuff in the graveyard and draw in blue, it doesn't really hurt to put more effects in there. If you're running some sort of blue or likely Dimir based like Reanimator deck, I can see this seeing some play. But that's probably about it. Oh good, Divide by 0. Dr. O. Divide by 0. 2 in a white for an instant. Turn target spell or permanent with mana value 1 or greater to its owner's hand. It's a very cool card thematically. You're paying 3 mana to return a spell or permanent. Okay, this might see some weird play. It'd be super fringe, but might see some play maybe. But I wouldn't hold out hope. It's a cool card and a cool concept, and the wording. It's nice that this is like the first real, like, you know, it's a Quandrix card all day long because they're math mages. So it fits its, like, lore and the world very well. And the card itself might see some fringe play. Next is Dream Strix. 2 and a blue for a 3/2 bird illusion with flying. When it becomes the target of a spell, sacrifice it. When it dies, you learn. I'm not over the moon about it. Learn in best of 3 is already on shaky grounds. I'm not like totally sold by it. And blue doesn't lack for card draw. So it's like a 3 mana 3/2, which is like on curve for blue flyers that can be pretty easily like killed. I don't think Dream Strix will really see a whole lot of play, if any. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, man. I don't think this will ever see play unless you're trying to make bird tribal work. Next is Frost Trickster. 2 and a blue for a 2/2 bird wizard with flying. When it enters the battlefield, tap target creature and opponent's control. It doesn't untap during its opponent's next untap step. These are usually fine, honestly. A 3 mana 2/2 flyer that frost breaths a thing. Limited will love it. It might see some fringe play. It's honestly a very good teaching card to kind of show what blue is or can do. So that'll probably be where it sees play. But I can actually see this seeing play somewhere. So there is that going for it. Next card, Ingenious Mastery. X2 to blue for a sorcery. Woo! Okay, so I think these masteries are likely going to be a cycle. You may pay just the 2 in the blue rather than pay its normal cost. If you do, you draw 3 cards, then an opponent creates 2 treasure tokens and scries 2. If that cost wasn't paid, you draw X cards. I mean, yeah, I'll just say it. I'm not, like, seeing really anything in this Ingenious Mastery. Yeah, I mean, I don't see this card ever seeing play, man. I could be wrong. Maybe there's something here that I don't see, like giving your opponents treasuring, and then like switcherooing your like an artifact you control or permanence you control for the treasure token. Maybe that's the only thing my brain can think of at this particular point in time. Other than that, I just don't see this ever really seeing play. On to the next card. Okay. Let's see. Kelpie Guide. 2 in a blue for a 2/2 beast. With some very cool looking art, honestly. Tap to untap another target permanent you control. Oh, good. Ramp in blue. That's what it needs. Tap target permanent. Activate it only if you control 8 or more lands. The ability to untap another target permanent at its like base level, there's some weird shenanigan deck like combo thing that's sitting behind this Kelpie Guide that I just can't think of right now. So I think this might see some weird combo-y play, but that's about it. But I'm concerned about the combo potential there. Next spell, Mentor's Guidance. 2 and a white for a sorcery. When you cast this spell, copy it if you control Planeswalker, Cleric, Druid, Shaman, Warlock, or Wizard. That's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. That it basically is like, hey, are you a magic user? There you go. I gotta be honest, I kinda love Strixhaven because I'm a mage at heart. Like, so, all of these things. Also, weird Shaman and Warlock love is kick-ass. I hope this is one of those seed cards that might hint at some more support for other tribes in the D&D set, but I could be wrong. But honestly, this card's pretty fucking good. Like, I see some... Hang on. I see some potential for this. Both as a card and for the potential of interesting, like, design choices in the future. And this is one of those, yeah, as a mage card, I love this card. This is, or as a mage player in, like, high fantasy, I eat this shit up. Next is Mercurial Transformation. 1 blue for a sorcery lesson. Until end of turn, target non-land permanent loses all abilities and becomes your choice of a blue frog. Becomes a blue frog. Bleh, power and toughness 1 and 1, or a blue octopus with base power and toughness 4/4. There's something here. Is it until end of turn? There's something weird here. I mean, it's a sorcery, so maybe in some weird sort of like New Age and Soul artifact thing, being able to turn some, I don't know, some cheap little 1-mana dirtler into a 4/4 on turn 2 and just like hit your opponent on the head with it. That might be something there. So yeah, maybe this might see some play. Maybe. Oh yeah, I saw this card, and I love this, like, these plays on words and stuff. Multiple choice, X and 1. If X is 1, scry 1, draw 1. If X is 2, you may choose a player. They return a creature they control to their hand. If X is 3, make a 4/4 red and blue elemental creature token. If X is 4 or more, do all the above. I think this card is so cool. It's, one, I think it's actually pretty fucking good. I think this card, this multiple choice is what that 3 mana X draw spell thing, that's what this card wants to be. That is so cool, man. And it's like got good flavor. The card is good. I actually would like I actually have some hope for this card being very good. Next card, Pop Quiz. 2 and a blue. Instant. Draw a card. Learn. Again, it's basically okay. Well, it's instant speed, so that's something. Being able to in best of 3. Again, if you really want to tutor a lesson in best of 3, you can, but wish boards are iffy at best. But being able to 3 mana divination, but then discard a card. I mean, yeah, it could see play. I'd be very surprised if it does, however. Next is Reject. 1 and a blue for an instant. Counter target instant or planeswalker spell unless its controller pays 3. If a spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it in the yard. It'll see some play probably, but these sort of soft counters, other than in like mono blue or a really heavy tempo list, you don't really see a whole lot of them. But the ability to exile it is very, very relevant. I'm just a little concerned that in Historic, Reject is sort of fighting for like is fighting to do what like a Syncopate would do. But this card might see some play, if only because of the exile clause. Overshot a little bit. A little more. Resculpt is the next card. 1 and a blue for an instant. Exile target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. Is this like better air quote Raven form? I could see this card in mono blue decks being used as removal, much like Raven forms I think should be used. But what's that blue card? I think it's Pongify that makes the monkey. Commander cards, or mono blue commanders will likely love this card. Historic best of 3, this might see some play in your mono blue decks, but I'd be very surprised if it sees play really much of anywhere else. Next card, Serpentine Curve. 3 and a blue for a sorcery. Create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the total number of instant and sorcery cards you own in exile and in your graveyard. I would rather just run, well, Invade the City is it a mass card that does practically the same thing for cheaper? Granted, you have to be in red, so that is technically a downside. But yeah, it's like a 4-mana sorcery. It's like a 4-mana, what, like 3/3, maybe 4/4 if you're lucky on curve. I don't see that really working at all. Tasty water. Next card is Snow Day. 4 and 2 blue for an instant. Tap up to 2 target creatures. They don't untap during their controller's next untap. Then you draw 2 cards, then discard a card. Frost effects, as we've already talked about, very rarely see play. But the fact that this does draw you cards and let you chuck a dead card might actually let this be a somewhat usable card. Although it being 6 mana is arguably too prohibitive of mana cost. But I could, be wrong here. But yeah, so I don't think this will see play, but it might see the very fringe play. But it's like a teaching card, which I suppose is appropriate for the plane in question. Let's see. Solve the equation. 2 and a blue for sorcery. Search your library for an instant or sorcery card. Reveal it. Put it into your hand, then shuffle. Combo decks just love a tutor. There's not a whole lot that I can think of instant or sorcery wise that you really want to tutor for, but it is a tutor, so I'm not going to complain too much. Blue players will, again, in commander formats, they'll love a tutor. They'll eat that shit up. But yeah, historic best of 3, I'm not over the moon about it, but I see its potential to be like an important thing. Next, Soothsayer Adept. 1 in the blue for a 1/3 Merfolk Wizard. Then for another 1 in a blue, you can tap to draw a card and discard a card. So is this the new Siren Storm Tamer or whatever? Or Siren, or whatever that looter card is, where the namesake comes from? What is that card's name? Anywho, this card is very bad. It is a teaching card or a draft card. That is it. Don't play it. I don't care how dapper the dude looks. It's a bad card. Symmetry Sage. 1 blue for a 0/2 human wizard with flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, cast or copy instant or sorcery, target creature you control has base power 2 until end of turn. I mean, maybe there's some weird combo like shenanigans with this ability, but I mean, maybe if you're running some sort of wizard tribal deck, you might get it to work, but I am not about this card. I'd be very surprised that it breaks through the teaching level. The hell are these Auric? They've never really... Maybe this is some sort of story article I'm missing, so I might actually do some homework. Anywho, Teachings of the Archaics. 2 in a blue for sorcery lesson. If an opponent has more cards in hand than you, draw 2. Draw 3 cards instead if an opponent has at least 4 more cards in their hand than you. It's like... As a lesson, it's good, since it's, like, if you happen to whatever... for whatever reason you want to wish it up, it's pretty good, but otherwise you could just run better card draw. It's one of those, it's just not that good. Like a situational divination just won't see play. Because divination doesn't see play. Tempted by the Auric. 1 and 3 blue for sorcery. For each opponent, gain control of up to 1 target creature or planeswalker that player controls with mana value 3 or less. This is probably I mean, you know, like those like Yoink Thief style decks do pop up every once in a while, so this might see some play. The each opponent clause is very clearly a commander thing, where I can see this being a little more relevant, but I could be wrong. This card will see play in like in some sort of like yoinky, steal all your shit, like my deck is your deck style thing, but I don't think it'll show up really anywhere else. Next is Test of Talents. I'm not... That might be me, but it might just be my brain going wild. This looks like Kazmina fucking with Luca, but I could be wrong. Anywho, Test of Talents. 1 in the blue for an instant. To counter a target instant or sorcery spell, search its controller's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name as that spell and exile them. That player shuffles them, then draws a card for each card. Okay. It's a counter spell that lets you, if you manage to counter a sorcery or instant, basically lets you, like, kill a combo? So that's good. If some sort of combo deck pops up that hinges on an instant or sorcery card, this card will see, like, heavy sideboard play, or even the occasional main board play. So this is one of those cards that has a lot of potential, but it will depend on how the meta unfolds. Let's see. Next is Vortex Runner. 2 in blue for 2/3 human wizard. As long as you control 8 or more lands, Vortex Runner gets +1/+0 and can't be blocked. It's a cool card. Like, thematically, I like what we're doing here. But I don't think it'll ever really see play. It's very slow for what it wants to do, since there are cheaper versions of this effect on bodies that can immediately enter the battlefield unblockable. So I don't think this card will see play outside of limited or teaching. Next is Waterfall Aerialist. 3 in blue for a Djinn wizard. Yeah, 3 in blue for a 3/1 Djinn wizard, as I believe how you pronounce that, with flying and ward 2. Whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter it unless that player pays 2. War as a mechanic is interesting. It might see some play, honestly, but like historically, these sort of I protect my creature with like a taxing effect on your removal spells. This type of effect, well, I guess what it's called a ward effect, honestly. These type of ward effects are never really see a whole lot of play. The card has to be good on its own for it to see play, not because it has ward, and this card is not terribly great. Next is Wormhole Serpent. 4 in blue for a 3/5 Serpent. Where for 3 in blue you can make target creature basically unblockable to end a turn. That's actually kind of good, because it's not just making itself unblockable, it can make another creature unblockable. So this might see some like weird fringe sort of play, like, you know, attach a sort of body and mind to a creature and like make it unblockable with the Wormhole Serpent. So this probably sees some very fringe play, but I'd be surprised if it gets anything more than that. Alright, next cup. Anywho, that is all for the blue video. Next, as you can clearly see from our little thing. We'll do black cards next. But that's all for this particular video. Like the video if you liked it, sub if you like me, and if you have your own sort of thoughts on card X or Y being absolutely great or total dumpster fire, that's what the comments are for. Just keep it simple. And with that, remember, I'm pulling for you. We're all in this together.